Hey guys, how are you? So this is a double upload. We are talking about Echo, the mini series on Marvel about Maya Lopez. It came out, I believe it was the 16th of January. Um, it is about Maya, who was featured first in Hawkeye. She is deaf and I believe also mute. She's also Choctaw, indigenous. I I adored this series so much for so many reasons. Um, so having representation really does matter. That's number one. Number two, I think that the way that Marvel collaborated with the actual Choctaw Nation was beautifully done. Just like when for Killers of the Flower Moon, which I know I didn't do a whole video here. When I had my TikTok, I did talk about it, but I'll have to redo that. Um, Seeing proper representation, not just representation, but proper representation matters, right? Seeing the culture, seeing, hearing about their stories of, in this case, of Chafa, seeing the regalia, seeing, there was, I think I have it in one of the clips, um, the Navajo taco, aka the fried Indian taco. In my tribe, we call it the grease fry bread. I'm San Carlos Apache, by the way. There's a lot of different names, but I thought that was cute. The music, the language. I mean, there was so much about it that it was just I can't stop thinking about it, honestly. Um, Now there was a little bit of bloody scene. I think Maya did a fantastic job, or well, I would say the show in itself kept, I want to say, the blood to a fairly minimum for Marvel. Um, but there were definitely like a scene or two where I was like, "Eh." um, oh, also to mention, disability representation because the origin of Maya is she lost her leg. Um, but everyone just treated her as normal, and I think that's beautiful. I can't speak to that disability, but if you do, please let me know. But from friends I've heard, they're just themselves. They're just normal, They have likes and loves and hates and dislikes just like anyone, right? So, uh, anyway, I've been ranting. I kind of gave my little review. Let's get right into these Easter eggs because we want to make this video shorter than the last one. So, just like I did in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we're starting with episode 1 of Echo, and its name is Chafa. We have the world before Chafa was on Earth, and it really reminds me of the Te Fiti, the rock, the heart of Te Fiti from Moana. I don't think it was intentionally to be done that way, but it's definitely giving the same vibes. And we know that in Moana, Te Fiti is a goddess that gives to earth and protects the people, right? The indigenous people of Polynesia. I don't know if I said that right. Moana's people. So in the legend, Chafa comes to Earth, and she is known as the first mother. This is what she turns into, and this is who Maya Lopez and her family are descended from. The first woman, Choctaw. So while majority of the film goes between New York, I think there was a little bit in LA. Mainly in the 5 episodes, they are in Tomahawk, Oklahoma. This is where the Choctaw Nation reside, and this is where um, she grew up until she was, I think she was like around 10, if I remember. And there's a whole origin story behind that. I don't want to get really into it because I don't want, if you're just watching this and haven't seen the show, I don't want to give spoilers away. So this is when um, Maya lost her leg in a car accident, and she also lost her mother. Um, and so this is her grandmother talking to her father, where she's being, well, the dad is being forced to leave the area, and he's not going to leave her behind. So she's forced to go with him, and this causes a lot of trauma for her, um, because she didn't really have anyone. Then we fast forward a little bit, and we see that Maya is boxing. She learned karate despite her prosthetic leg. Um, and she then learned that her dad was into some shady deals, and he was unalived by this masked man, which we do find out who that is, both in this show, which I shortly coming up, as well as in Hawkeye. So if you haven't seen Hawkeye, I apologize. There are going to be some overlaps, but and a little bit of a spoiler, so I apologize. So here's a little Easter egg, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I'm sure you guys know that song. It was also a movie. This is during the time that Wilson Fisk, also known as the Kingpin, sent Maya in with 2 guards to see how she does. Okay. He had become her guardian after the death of her father and her mother, but her father specifically. And he basically trained her, and we're going to see more of that, of how that came to be. But this is also when she meets Daredevil. Now, I'll be honest, I hadn't seen the show Daredevil up until this point. I knew who he was, but I hadn't seen his show. So I have been in the middle of catching up, and whew, lots to talk about there. So there's a comeback with Daredevil for a reason, and there's been a lot of updates from Marvel that there's going to be another show, possible movie, possible more Defenders coming. We have a lot to talk about. Then it flashes back to when Maya had her one-on-one with the masked man who killed her father, and it turns out to be Hawkeye. Hawkeye basically gives her the information that the hit was ordered by Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, the man that she had known as her second father. Anywho, so she goes to find him and she shoots him point blank. All right, now we fast forward to 5 months later. This is present day, and she travels back to Tamaha, Oklahoma to get information. She first goes to one of her uncle's skate places because she doesn't want to be seen by a lot of people and she wants information. He won't give it to her, and then the episode ends with we see that Wilson Fisk is actually still alive. Episode 2, Loic. Now in this episode, it starts off with more history of the Choctaw Nation, starting with 1200 AD in Alabama. We see one of her ancestors having a lacrosse game with the Cherokee Nation, and through that we find out that she has these magical powers, strength, because if she didn't win, she would be exiled. And this is when, sorry guys, this is when we find out that Maya herself are having the same sort of vision, right? She's getting visions into the past, and this is going to come into play, throughout the rest of the episodes. These are really, really important. Now, in episode 3 in Tuklo, we have more of her indigenous ancestry, and we learn more about this character, Tukla, who became a light horseman, which we find out later on. Anyway, so during the last episode, Maya had injured her prosthetic leg. She goes to a different uncle who then fixes it for her and creates this beautiful craft to put over her future prosthetic that he's actually fixing. She currently has a temporary. So during this episode, she finds out that Wilson Fisk is still alive, and he is basically saying, hey, I forgive you. I still want you basically to be like the daughter I never had, and we need to have chats. Basically, he just wants to control her, but we'll find more about that in the future. So this episode keeps switching between the the story of Tucklow and how she became a light horseman, and the history of her and how she got her powers through the ancestors of being related to Chafa, as to the present day, and how their powers are descended through. It's quite interesting. It's giving like 1800s, and so there's a whole lot of that switching between. Then the episode ends with Henry, one of her uncles, getting kidnapped. Well, not kidnapped. He got tied up with Maya by. There was a traitor that worked for Henry. It's complicated, but they all end up working under Fisk. So this Easter egg is more to the Choctaw Nation and other indigenous tribes. The coyote is, in our legends, in our myths and legends, is seen as the bad guy, right? The liar, the snake, the sneaky one, the thief. So it's kind of interesting to see a pinball machine of that sort, but definitely a hats off to our indigenous legends in other ways. Episode 4, Taloa, starts off with Maya being a child in 2008. She was just a little girl. This is when she was taken into custody by Wilson Fisk. She actually saw him create violence on her behalf, and she realized, or at the time, she thought that, like, oh, this is okay, right? Like, this was a man who had always been around her as a kid and, like, took her in, and he was going to fight on her behalf because she's deaf, mute, and has a prosthetic leg. Now we fast forward to 2021, and Wilson is back in her life after being shot in the eye. And instead of actually learning how to sign, he had this thing created so that while he talks, there's like this virtual thing so that she could see it through like a device. I don't know how to explain it. So she could see it through a device, and she can understand sign. It gets complicated, but all he wants to have is their regular Sunday night dinners. And he basically gives her an ultimatum of, if you're not on the plane by a certain time and date, then I'm coming after you, basically. Like, she knows that there's no more, right? Okay, so during the first episode, when Maya's prosthetic got damaged, it was because she was doing something she probably shouldn't have been, and with the help of her cousin backing her up, and her grandmother's truck got destroyed. Now, she still hasn't seen her grandmother at this point, but the cousin took the truck and, yeah, accidentally destroyed it. So in this scene, he's trying to get it fixed up, and there's a little Easter egg to The Lion King, which they actually acknowledge. So meanwhile, the grandmother had stopped being creative, and then, seeing her granddaughter and having a talk, she gets to crafting again, and she creates this beautiful Choctaw inspired outfit, which we will see later on. We then see Maya have a chat with Fisk. She basically turns him down in person. But before that, he tells her about how he killed his father with the hammer, this hammer, not Thor's hammer, but this hammer, and that's how you become the kingpin, right? And he's basically handing it down to her as a queen, right? She's seen as a queen because she's like a daughter to him. And we are on the last episode, Maya. So this is all about, it still has some about her past. Her mother also had a power of healing, which she forgot about. She learned through her mother that birds talk to you, especially woodpeckers give you a sign. So she goes to look for her mother after seeing the woodpecker, um, and she realizes that her mother and also her cousin Bonnie, who she's really close with, were kidnapped. And this is when she takes the outfit that her grandmother had made and she goes to the powwow that had been planned throughout this entire 5 episodes, because she knows something's going to go down and she wants to stop Fisk and his men. Now, I told you all at the beginning during my review there was an Easter egg to the Navajo tacos. Here it is. So I'm not going to give everything away, but basically during the powwow, we know that like this is the end of the episode, the end of the season. So we know something big is going to happen. So we see that Maya is surrounded by indigenous people. She kind of goes off. She finds Fisk, and then Fisk basically shows her that that he has Bonnie and her grandmother in custody. So during this fight, well, I wouldn't really call it a true fight, but during this fight, she was told to use the echo through her past, right? So all of these characters that we had seen, Chafa and Tuklo and Taloa and so forth, Loak, right? To use them, and her mother even, to get the powers that she needs. So here we see them all together because it's all of them as a family. Now outside, her cousin Biscuit and her uncle Henry are taking down the other bad guys. But instead of killing Fisk, Maya uses the power of healing just like her mother and takes Fisk back into a part of his past when during the last episode he was talking about, being scared of his father and how his father was really a bad guy and hurt his mom and this whole thing. Instead, she used that moment to heal him. And then the show ended with this beautiful dedication to the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching the whole video. If you guys could do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, share, hit that notification bell button so you're notified every time we upload. Tomorrow will be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2. Like I said, it's going to be a longer video when I do the seasons, unless it's like a short, like this one, which is fairly short, but we have so much to talk about, and I'm super excited. I hope you guys are too.